So it wasn't until my junior year in high school, while filling out college applications, that I found out that I was underprivileged. Looking back, though, the signs were there. My parents hadn't gone to college, we lived in a trailer park for a few years, and we received food stamps. However, this is the farthest from how I remember my childhood. I grew up, like probably many of us, with follow your heart as my guiding force. My grandma followed her heart when she encouraged my mom to have the baby, me, when my mom got pregnant at the age of 15. My parents followed their hearts when they dropped everything in Colombia, and we moved to the US. I followed my heart walking into the Thomas Armour Youth Ballet in South Miami to try out this thing called ballet I had a vague interest in at the age of 13. Following my heart led me to ballet and the arts, which turned my life around. However, this year, my senior and final year at Harvard University, as I'm thinking, Javi, what are you going to do with your life? My guiding force is no longer follow your heart, and it is now follow your heartbreak. Wait, so what does this even mean? For me, follow your heart means doing something that I love and makes me happy, which is great, but these past few years, I've experienced that follow your heartbreak means coming across something that breaks your heart, that makes you think, this is messed up, and feeling empowered to do something about it. The story of my heartbreak begins 2 years ago when I traveled to the country of the Philippines on a service trip organized by a classmate from the Philippines. As background, in the Philippines, there are high rates of children living on the streets and children who are victims of child sex trafficking. Our first stop was Stairway Foundation, a home and program for about 14 boys at a time who have either lived on the streets or been victims of child sexual abuse, or both. So one of the founders is actually a former ballerina, and she has made art central to the rehabilitation process of these kids. So one of the nights, the boys performed their musical version of Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. And as I sat in the audience, my heart crumbled. Each of these boys has their own story, but amongst them, they've been through some of life's toughest obstacles, separated from their families, life on the streets, very little schooling, if any, and for some, a youth in child pornography and the sex trade, and drugs to make them forget. However, in that moment, in their costumes, theater was allowing them to be just kids having fun, laughing and dancing in the spotlight, defined not by what they have been through, but by what they are becoming. So this really showed me the power of the arts. And our second stop in the Philippines was working with children currently living on the streets, children who my team and I colored and danced with during our art workshops, who were each day returning to the cardboard boxes and bridges that they called home for that night. Children the same age as my baby brother and sister, except instead of scooters and skateboards, they had tin cans for collecting coins. This shattered my world. Except this was the first time in my life that I had seen the power of art in other people and not just in my personal experience. So a year later, so this past summer, I had the incredible opportunity of traveling to the country of Tanzania in East Africa for a summer internship. But what really, really impacted my life was meeting a visual artist who, one, confirmed the power of art, and two, who made the phrase, follow your heartbreak, click in my mind. So I actually first met one of his students, a street vendor named Ali, who I bumped into as I was just sightseeing around downtown. And he came over to me, began showing me the paintings he was selling. And after buying 2 of them, I asked him how to get to the National Museum, the place that was next on my list of things to see. And in true Tanzanian hospitality, he began walking there with me. So as we were walking, I kept throwing questions at him. How did you start painting? How have the arts impacted your life? And in the most coincidental of ways, his mentor and art teacher worked at the National Museum that we were visiting. So we walk in together, and he takes me to meet Taifa, his mentor. So I'm standing there. hearing Ali and Taifa speaking and hearing their story. So Taifa had experienced a heartbreak similar to mine in the Philippines when he saw just how many kids were living on the streets in Tanzania. He's a visual artist, and he saw great potential for using the arts to uplift underprivileged communities. So he started a one-year arts program for kids living on the streets in one village, and Ali was a part of this program. The sole reason why Ali was making art, making a living off of it, and maybe the sole reason why he was able to get off of the streets. During this conversation, I flashed back to the Philippines, and I saw how both of these experiences, so the Philippines Stairway Foundation and Taifa's art program, both started with individuals who felt something that shattered their worlds, that broke their hearts, and doing something about it. So this really made the phrase, "follow your heartbreak," click in my mind. Throughout these experiences, I found that my heartbreak is seeing children without an access to an education and without an access, maybe even worse, to a childhood. And I found that we don't have to travel thousands of miles to see this in action. In our own Miami, almost a third of preschoolers live in poverty, a statistic that I was a part of. And so now what am I going to do about this? I'm not exactly sure, but I am guided by how, one, the arts lifted the spirits of my students in the Philippines, two, lifted Ali off of the streets, and how I would not be here standing in front of you had it not been for my first ballet class. So tonight, I leave you with this challenge. The next time you come across something that shatters your world, that breaks your heart, take a second and think, is there anything that I can do about this? Odds are, no matter who we are or where we come from, there is always something that we can do. Thank you.